I don't know what. Oh, okay, it is. Okay. So, describe your aspirations as a child.
You know, as a child, my vision was very limited. Um, my parents were, well, neither one of them were college graduates. My mother had 1 year of college. My father was a um, high school dropout. He went to the military, became an officer in the military, which was pretty good for a black back in that time. So when my aspirations were basically just to get a good job, you know, always admired my teachers in school. My grandmother was a teacher, and so and my grandfather, my great grandfather, actually founded the first African American school in Winston Salem. And so I always kind of wanted to go into teaching. I always thought about teaching. And I would always teach um, my dolls and those kinds of things. They would have lined up and that kind of thing.
Mm.
But I remember one day when I was talking to my mom, no, my dad, and I told him that I wanted to be a secretary because my mom was a secretary at a hospital. And he had a stroke. And he says, "No child of mine, I'm not sending any child of mine to school to become a secretary." And so for that was the first time I ever really thought about what that meant. You know, why? And he says, "There's nothing wrong with being a secretary. You know, that's fine if that's the best that you can do. But I feel like you can do better." And so I guess that was the point at which I really started to think about what kind of career I wanted. And um, I really, my dream career actually would have been to be a journalist. That's what I wanted to do. And my minor in school was journalism.
Mm.
And I planned to, because my major was writing, was English, but it was concentration in writing. And I had planned to graduate from college and to travel the world and to come back and do this, be this grand journalist. I had Ed Bradley as my mentor. I thought he was so cool. And I wanted to be like Ed Bradley. Well, that dream changed very quickly. Um, so long story short, when I graduated, I came to South Carolina, met my husband. My mother-in-law says, "Well, have you ever thought about education?" And I was like, "Well, that's not really what I wanted to do." But she got a job for me temporarily working uh, at that time it was a elementary school as a long-term sub.
Okay.
And that was the eye changer for me. And it was the day that I walked in that classroom when I saw little people looking at me and I realized not only that I enjoyed it, but that I had a knack for it.
Mm.
And that's the day I decided that I wanted to be a teacher, an educator.
Okay. What how has being an educator impacted you?
Um, it has impacted every aspect of my life. I mean, first of all, when people find out that you're an English teacher, the first thing they say is, "Oh, well, let me watch my grammar."
Mm. Exactly.
And so I have had to learn that people watch what I do and watch what I say. And
Exactly.
so I have to be very careful about the things, the way I present myself in public, because I know that there's always someone watching. People who know me at church will often ask me about um, how to say something, how to do something. I have done more editing for friends and family that I can think of because of who I am, because I know how to do it. And it's not something that I mind doing, but um, but it also makes me think about what my role is on campus. I always tell students that, not students, but people who talk to me about my job,
Mm.
that I don't stay on campus and never stayed on campus because it was a job. I mean, it was always more to me. I always felt like it was a calling, that it
Mm.
was something that I was there to do to try to impact the lives of students more than just in the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. And not only what I was teaching academically, whatever the subject was, but also to teach morals and principles and things like that. Those skills that a lot of our students may not have gotten at home because of whatever circumstances they were in.
And what lessons have you learned being an educator?
That's a hard one. Um, First of all, I don't know everything. Not that I ever thought I did, but a lot of times I found out that students teach me a lot. There's a lot that I can learn from my students. And I think we shortchange students when we uh, don't give them credit for knowing a lot more than what even they think they know. Um, so sometimes it helps to listen. You know, we as educators have a tendency to want to talk all the time. But sometimes we need to learn to just listen. And sometimes when we listen, it's more about, we learn more about what's not said than what is said. So um, I also learned that as an educator, I learn every day. You know, that I never thought about it. When I finished college, I thought, okay, I have this degree and now I'm
Right.
prepared to conquer the world, right? Um, but every day is a learning experience. You know, every day I can learn something new. And so every day I try to learn something new and to use that knowledge in some way, you know, whether it's helping someone else or helping myself to help someone else in the future. But there's every day, every life is a learning experience if we allow it to be, and it should be.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you feel that the education system has changed from now to from maybe 10 years ago?
Oh my goodness, technology, technology, technology. I remember even, you know, when I first started teaching, of course, everything was face to face, blackboard. Of course, that was 30, 40, almost 30, well, 30 plus years ago. We used the blackboard we had was the blackboard that was actually on the wall. That was the blackboard. Now, blackboard is something we can do on a computer. And I think that a lot of people in my generation especially are afraid of technology because we don't use it the way that a lot of young people do. But technology can be our friend. And if we use it correctly, things just technology can use it for so many good purposes. I'm still learning. That's one of the things students often teach me is how to use different pieces of technology that I'm still afraid of, whether it's Twitter and all of these other things.
I do understand. I do understand that I get.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So technology is one of the biggest things I think, and even with COVID, you know, the last 2 years, 2 years ago, we were not using Zoom, right?
That's it.
Um,
We were not.
so
We weren't.
yeah,
And do
so now we have another, I'm sorry.
oh, you're fine. I'm sorry. You're fine. I was gonna ask you, do you think, well, how has COVID, just teaching from home, how has that impacted the way you deliver your content to your students? And do you feel that from the first year of COVID and now have you gotten a little bit better with your the way that you deliver? Or do you feel that it's the same as when you're in person?
It's definitely different. Um, uh, it's, I don't know that it's better. I hope it is. I try to be more enthusiastic and to have more um, animation, if you will, when I deliver my classes now, because most students, you know, they're doing online all day, every day, and they get bored very quickly. And so instead of just giving a lecture, which doesn't work, you know, I have to find other means to try to engage the students. And that's a really difficult thing. And to be honest, that's one of the things that I'm still struggling with this semester because I have so many students who are just disengaged. And I'm not sure what the answer is. Yeah. It's hard. COVID is hard. I mean, it's a mental challenge, it's a physical challenge. And so, yeah.
Looking at a screen all day, it gets
Yes,
tiring, sometimes depressing if you let it. So I do.
exactly. Exactly.
And what positions have you held in the education field?
Um, Position. Teacher, primarily instructor of English. And when I first, well, before I came over, text my daughter. Hold on a second.
Fine.
I think she's on her way to work, but I haven't talked to her this week. Um, when I was in freshman programs years ago, I started off teaching developmental programs. And so we addressed students who had serious academic needs in their writing.
Mm.
And afterwards, I began running the writing lab in freshman programs. It was called then the Student for the Writing for Success Center is what we had. And it was diagnostic prescriptive. Students would come in, we would look at their writing and with, and then we would try to deliver those skills. Now I'm doing, 20, 30 years later, doing the same thing again. But only I'm doing it instead of for freshman programs or student success center, I'm doing it in the English department. And it's interesting, I love working with, I have the best tutors in the world. So I'm very fortunate. It makes my life easier. But I think those are the primary, I had different places on committees, different roles on different committees, been on lots and lots of different committees for the university. But that's about it for, as far as having positions. And of course, I was advisor for one of the student activities once, but years ago.
I like it. You did great with your interview.